that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week with George Harvey, me, and Tom Fennell.
Hello, hello.
My name is Tom Fennell. Every day I get up early, and everybody who watches this show regularly is probably bored already because that's what I always say. I get up early, I check the news for articles relating to climate change and energy. I make a set of 10 to 15 synopsises with links to the original articles, and I post them at a blog called geoharvey.com. And on Thursday mornings, Tom and I talk about the ones from the previous week that were the most interesting, perhaps.
The best of the blog.
The best of the blog. So we're bringing those to you, and we are starting.
And we start with a nice picture of the Gowanus Canal.
We start with a great picture of downtown, of Brooklyn. It includes a bit of downtown Brooklyn, but we're starting on the 27th of April.
I need that picture, though.
You do. There it is.
Hey,
today, the day that we're talking about this, we have is the 4th of May. So I imagine if you're watching this broadcast, it will be sometime between the 5th and the
This is an interesting story about what can be done on a local level
Absolutely.
in a big city.
Absolutely. Anywhere. This could be done anywhere.
This could be done anywhere.
Yeah. This could be done anywhere. And it comes from a publication called Curbed. C-U-R-B-E-D.
And the headline is, ta-da, drum roll,
Yeah.
solar power's future may be on these Brooklyn rooftops.
Imagine that. Brooklyn, of all places. An energy startup, LO3 Energy, is developing and running the Brooklyn microgrid in an effort to create a localized, sustainable energy market in neighborhoods of Park Slope and Gowanus. It is a test run of a small-scale energy trading, which has already recruited and linked up dozens of consumers and residents with solar panels. And what they're doing here is they're for the network, they're using rooftops to put up solar panels. That's what we were looking at in that picture.
I'll put it up again.
Okay. And you can see bits of downtown Brooklyn in the background there, and trains and so forth.
Well, that's what you're looking at is the Gowanus Canal.
The Gowanus Canal.
And there's an industrial area all alongside it, but all around the industrial area is residential.
Yep. And
it's nice old-fashioned brownstones. It's just a high-class neighborhood now.
Yeah, they have lovely brownstones all around a number of neighborhoods in Brooklyn. And of course, Tom and I have both had experience in Brooklyn, and so we feel a little bit of
an affinity to it.
Affinity to this, I think, is a better word than familiarity. I may never have been in that neighborhood. I don't know.
Well, I never saw the Gowanus Canal. I knew that.
You can go to Brooklyn and not see it all, unlike some places in this world where you drive through it and you haven't seen it because your eyes were closed when you blinked.
Well, we've talked before about virtual utilities.
Yeah.
And basically that's what these guys are doing. They've got their own little virtual utility.
I think we should do that in Brattleboro.
I think eventually we will.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe you or I can have something to do with it, but eventually it's going to happen because it makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you a quick thing about this. The project is merely connecting pre-existing technology.
Yep.
The panels are up there, the customers are up there, and they figured a way to get them together.
Yeah.
Some of the people had more electricity than they needed. Their next door neighbor didn't have a roof to put panels on, and these guys basically they're shaking hands.
Yeah. There it is. And with batteries, that utility, virtual utility that they've got, could conceivably be running even if the neighborhood that it's in goes down.
They didn't say anything, I don't think, in the article about batteries, but it certainly makes sense.
I thought they did.
It certainly makes sense that they would have them.
Yeah, I was in Brooklyn when they had that power outage in 1965.
Uh-huh.
And, I remember very well, everything except the Navy Yard went black. So
I was in a department store shopping
Yeah.
I was in the shoe department,
Uh,
and the lights went out, and the shoes we were looking at had these little footprints as a trademark in the insoles,
yes.
and they glowed in the dark. So I'm looking down there to see 1,000 little footprints.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I knew people who were in the subways under the East River.
Oh, that's not a good place to be.
They had to walk out.
Yeah, they had no choice.
They had no choice. Yeah, they were in the subway cars for an hour before somebody came up with a flashlight and said, "Follow me."
Now, there's a takeaway here, because this is important. For much of the last century, electricity was centrally produced, distributed, and sold through massive state utilities.
Right.
Lots of electricity was lost via transmission from distant power plants. The microgrid is changing all of this.
Yeah, yeah. The transmission losses are cut to practically nothing.
Practically nothing. I mean, it's going next door.
Yeah, this is a big deal, and of course, a lot depends on voltage, which is why they have such high voltage for transmission lines. If you have an off-grid house, and you're using 12-volt electricity, DC electricity, the power loss from one end of the house to the other can be important. Mm-hmm. Which is why people who are off-grid generally don't use 12-volt; they use 24 or 48.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
it's a little bit better. Or they'll bump it all up to 120 so they can use regular appliances.
Which is probably what they're doing
I'm
here.
sure they are.
Yeah. Okay. Should we go on?
Well, one quick takeaway.
Okay.
The microgrid is possible because technology has significantly changed the energy equation in recent years, making more decentralization possible.
Yeah.
And that's the mark of the future, really.
Absolutely. Okay. Our next item is from Insider Tradings.
Okay. U.S. companies. Let me get us back here, or I'll get you back here.
This is the comeback of us.
U.S. companies unite in support of producing more renewable energy. This is significant,
This
too.
is, indeed. There's a strong renewable energy target set by almost 50% of major companies in the United States. A report from the World Wildlife Fund series Calvert Research and Management shows that increasing numbers of investors are promising to rely on clean energy. In the process, they are already saving $3.7 billion a year.
And a lot of them are doing it just because it's economically feasible. They're saving money.
They're saving money.
A quick takeaway here. 190 of the Fortune 500 companies confirmed that by the use of renewable energy, a huge emission reduction is taking place equivalent to 45 coal-fired power plants.
Yeah, yeah. And this is just big companies. This doesn't say anything about utilities that are doing the same thing. It doesn't say anything about individual customers who are doing it. We're seeing that we're moving into a really huge change.
Well, it's a different model that we're seeing now. We're
Yeah.
moving a
Into
new
a different
paradigm.
model. It's
if
a
you
new
will.
paradigm.
Yep. Paradigm?
Paradigm.
Let's move into a paradigm in Australia.
A paradigm in Australia.
And we got a
This
nice
is from
picture up
the
here.
Advertiser. This
Nice
is a picture that accompanied the article. I don't know where the picture was taken. It might have been taken in Austria for all I know. But from the Advertiser.
Wasn't taken in Park Slope.
Yeah.
Australia's solar rooftop hotspot, South Australia.
Wow. Solar power makes up 11% of Australian generating capacity. South Australia is the highest penetration among dwellings at 32%, with Aberfoyle Park the state's solar rooftop hotspot. The market is driven by increased knowledge, huge electricity prices, and fear the federal government will cut incentives in the future. People are upset because the power prices in Australia have gone up so much in the last few years. They're significantly, I don't know, I think in some places they're twice or three times what
I've
they
seen
were.
double, yeah.
Yeah. And this is a serious problem, and people are just saying, well,
they're taking it into their own hands.
Right, they're
So
taking
why
it
should
into
I
their
pay
own.
them?
Why should I pay them? Exactly. Okay, we are up to Friday, April 28th.
Well, a quick takeaway here now. There are now 6 gigawatts, that's a lot,
That's
of
a lot.
solar power installed across Australia.
Yeah.
Enough to meet the needs of 1.3 million average
Yeah,
households.
if you take 6 gigawatts of solar and you compare it to a largish nuclear power plant with the relative capacity factors, it's about 1.5 of those large nuclear power plants. Maybe
It's the
in a place.
largest ones.
Yeah,
It's much bigger than Yankee.
Yeah, oh yeah, almost twice the size of Yankee. This is Australia, where in many places there's a lot of sunshine. Not everywhere. There are parts of
Australia's got a lot of sunshine.
A lot of sunshine.
Got a lot of wind too.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move along to
Okay.
Friday, April 28th.
Yes, indeed. And we have our first item on Friday from Clean Technica.
Global oil discoveries and oil projects fall to record lows in 2016.
This just blows my mind. It just blows my mind. According to the International Energy Agency, oil discoveries declined to 2.4 billion barrels in 2016, compared to the previous average over the last 15 years of 9 billion barrels.
So it's about a 75% drop.
It's about a 75% drop. The IEA reported that because of low oil prices, the number of projects receiving final investment decision has fallen to the lowest level seen since the 1940s.
So the investors are staying out because they're looking at this and they're saying there's no money in it.
Well, you know what has happened, and this has happened particularly with natural gas and fracking, is that a company will get together, it'll buy the rights to drill on a piece of property, they will set up to do the drilling, and then they'll go to the market for investors. They'll get a whole lot of money from the investors. They'll pay themselves high wages, and then 3 years later they go broke.
Yeah.
So the investors are holding the bag,
And these guys made out.
and and you know it's honestly, I think it's a scam. So. And this item, by the way,
It is a scam. Whether it was deliberate or not, I don't know. But it definitely it's turned out to be a scam.
If you want to find this, by the way, go to my blog, geoharvey.com, and there's a calendar there, and click on April 28th, and you'll find the area in which this appears.
Well, I'll take the time to mention it. There's a lot of stuff that we look at here.
Yeah.
And some of them are so interesting, we could take the whole show.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so if you hear something that you want to look at, look him up, click on the article. There's a link there, and it'll take you right to the original article.
geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. Our next item is from Common Dreams, and it involves somebody that everybody in Vermont knows well.
Yeah, we're a little bit closer to home here. Senators introduce the most ambitious climate plan ever.
Senators Bernie Sanders, independent of Vermont, Jeff Merkley, a Democrat from Oregon, and Edward J. Markey, Democrat from Massachusetts, introduced legislation to build a 100% renewable economy by 2050. It was called, quote, the most ambitious piece of climate legislation Congress has ever seen, end quote, by 350.org. Others caution that it might not be enough to deal with climate change.
That is significant.
Yes.
The act, by the way, is called the 100 by 50 Act. And it calls for 50% of U.S. electricity to be produced by renewable energy sources like wind or solar by 2030.
Yeah.
And 100% by 2050.
Yeah.
That's for the nation.
That's for the nation. And honestly,
Now, this hasn't passed, of course.
No.
And it won't pass the first time around, I can bet that.
No, I don't think it will.
And it will eventually pass.
I think something like it will probably pass sooner or later. But honestly, I think we're going to be there whether this happens or not, because the economy is changing so fast in the direction of renewable energy being the cheapest stuff around.
Well, it's the economy, stupid.
Yeah, that's right.
Unfortunately, critics say this act is inadequate.
Yes.
Okay? Ending the climate crisis is going to require more than that.
Yes.
I was listening yesterday to a guy. He wasn't so much of a prophet as he was a student of prophets.
Yes.
Okay? And he used the word, he says, we have a volcanic situation hiding in the permafrost.
Oh, yes.
He said that there's all sorts of methane hidden there.
Yeah.
And if they start releasing all at once, it's going to be catastrophic.
It's going to be catastrophic, although there may be ways to deal with that.
God, I hope so.
Well, here, I'll just give you an example.
Yeah.
Titanium dioxide is a chemical that is sufficient.
White paint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sufficiently safe that for various reasons it's included in the confectioner's sugar that's put
And
on
toothpaste.
donuts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, it happens that if you have ultraviolet light, which you do have lots of during the daytime in the upper atmosphere, if you have lots of ultraviolet light, titanium dioxide in that area will act as a catalyst to change methane into carbon dioxide and
hydrogen.
hydrogen, which will in turn be turned into water. So there's
hope.
Well, I mean, these are things that can be done, and it's not just methane; it's any hydrocarbon.
Okay.
So if one of the things they've done is they've put this along highways in France where there was poor air circulation, and during the daytime the level of hydrocarbons.
You mean they just laid it down a layer of titanium dioxide?
Exactly.
Which is cheap stuff.
It's not expensive.
Yeah.
It's more expensive than table salt, but
it doesn't taste as good either.
Well, it depends on the salt. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah,
we have an item here from Clean Technica, still on April 28th.
Companies call on Trump and Congress to strengthen Energy Star.
More than 1,000 U.S. companies, 1,000 companies, are calling on Congress and the administration to strengthen the EPA's Energy Star program instead of following through on its proposed elimination as per Trump's recent budget proposal. The company signed a joint letter organized by the Alliance to Save Energy to congressional leaders. Now, we could note at this point that they have come up with a budget.
They've come up with agreements and they're about to vote on it.
Yeah.
It's today or tomorrow.
Yeah, and the budget doesn't look anything like Trump's budget.
So is Energy Star still in the budget?
I don't know, honestly. My bet is that it is because, Trump called for huge cuts in the EPA and things like that. The EPA was cut in this budget by 1%. That's not a huge cut. He was calling for huge cuts.
Yeah. On everything other than the military.
Everything other than the military, yeah.
Interesting takeaway here. This came from the article. The U.S. EPA's Energy Star program is the most successful voluntary energy efficiency movement.
Of course, you got to get rid of it. It's successful.
Launched 25. This is also interesting. I didn't know this. Launched 25 years ago under President George H.W. Bush.
How about
the program boasts more than 16,000 partner companies and organizations. Serves not just the U.S. but also the European Union, Australia, and Canada. And it costs while it costs $50 million a year to administer, it saves consumers more than $34 billion annually.
Well, by golly, you got to get rid of it. I mean, just think about it.
Makes too much sense.
Yeah, think about it. 2 years ago, Koch Industries was one of the largest companies in the world by revenue. It might still be.
Are.
It might still be, but 2 years ago it was on Wikipedia's list of the largest companies by revenue. It isn't anymore.
Is that
the
so?
cutoff on that is $100 billion a year, which happens to be bigger than all sales of wind turbines, all makes, all models worldwide. But Koch Industries is there, and so were 21 oil and gas companies. Of those 22 companies, which had combined revenues that were about double the U.S. federal budget, only 7 oil and gas companies are still on that list.
Is that so?
Yeah.
So they're hurting?
They're hurting. And those 7 companies last year, their revenues went down 30 to 37%. They are fighting everything that works. They're fighting efficiency. They're saying, don't do efficiency. Efficiency will cost you money. They're fighting wind power. They're fighting utility scale solar power in places where it appears to be popular. They've been fighting rooftop solar, distributed solar. They've been fighting hydro. They've been fighting everything. Everything.
Yeah.
In
everything but fossil fuels.
In Vermont, we could have, if we developed every dam that's been put up for irrigation or for flood control.
Yep.
If we put generating facilities,
self-sufficient in electricity.
we'd get to about 200 megawatts out of that. You try doing that, and you're going to have citizens committees, grassroots committees, whose funding comes from Never Never Land, rising up saying, you don't want hydro, that'll block streams. I'm sorry, the dams are already
Streams
there.
are already blocked. Right?
Well, they'll come up with something about silt or something that will,
Yeah.
Okay. Should we move on?
Yeah,
Okay.
this was appropriate because it just happened.
Yes.
April 29th, last
April
Saturday.
29th, last Saturday.
Climate March organizers could not have picked a more fitting day
Oh,
to
boy.
protest.
This is from
Get
Mashable.
this picture.
Yeah. And that protest at the White House that you see in that picture wasn't on Saturday, it was the day before.
Was it really?
Yes.
They lied to us.
That's
huh?
why the crowd was so small. They were complaining about the Keystone XL.
That's what it says, no
Yeah.
KXL.
Okay, for the second time in a week, activists will take to the streets of Washington, D.C. and hundreds of other locations worldwide. Well, they've already done it. This time, the issue at hand will be global warming, and the backdrop in the nation's capital on Saturday could not be more appropriate. The weather forecast for Washington calls for potentially record-shattering heat.
Which happened.
Yeah.
It was
So,
in the 90s.
Senator Inhofe, bring out your snowball. Oh, man.
Over the past several years, Washington has set an astonishing number of heat records as greenhouse gas concentrations have soared to their highest level in over 800,000 years.
Well,
Yeah.
it'll take another 800,000 years to double it, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Are we done with that one?
We're done with that one.
Okay, our next
We're
one
not
is-
done with it, but we're done with it.
Our next one is from the Indian Express.
How do you get these things?
Well, I'm doing web searches, and I'm just finding stuff that comes up. There's the what is it called? The Greek Maritime Shipping News or something like that.
Yeah,
I
you
get a
come
lot
up
of
with
stuff
weird
out of
ones,
them, But this is the Indian Express.
Website undergoing makeover to match Trump and Pruitt views.
They're telling us their views, not the facts, or at least not the real facts. They're telling us the alternate facts. The website of the U.S. EPA, EPA.gov, surprisingly enough, is getting a makeover to reflect the views of President Donald Trump and EPA Administrator Scott Pruitt. The agency said in a statement, quote, as EPA renews its commitment to human health, clean air, land, water, our website needs to reflect the views of the leadership of this agency.
In other
End
words,
quote.
it came down from above.
It came down from above. It came down from two people
Yeah.
who are totally ignorant.
Well, Trump has already said that climate change is a hoax.
Yes,
Now, he's changing his tune on that a little bit.
a little bit.
Yeah.
What he should
And-
do is he should look at the history of flood insurance claims in the United States.
Well, we've talked about that.
Oh,
yes,
man.
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, in 1978, they were $82 million. They've gone up since, up
By quite a bit.
by quite a bit. From 1978 to 2004, they averaged $480 million. They started at 82, but they averaged 480. Then
that's
in
still low.
2004, they had a new law called the Flood Insurance Reform Act, which said if you put in two claims in a 10-year period, your flood insurance is no longer guaranteed.
Mm-hmm.
So that should have driven the cost of flood
Should
insurance.
have, but it didn't.
But it didn't. From 1978 to 2004, the average was 480 million. The record was 1.3 billion.
Wow.
From 2005 to 2016, the average was 3.3 billion,
Wow.
and the record was 17 billion. How do you explain that without stronger storms happening more often?
Well, that is a fact.
It's a fact. And Donald Trump and Scott Pruitt can come up with whatever alternative facts they want, but the money keeps flying out of the coffers.
Well, we talked about this last week, but down in Trump's Mar-a-Lago,
Yeah.
3 feet of energy rise, that's gone. I mean, ocean rise, that's gone. And
Yeah.
that's been predicted that it could happen as soon as the end of the century.
All we have to do is design a new golf club that will work on balls that happen to be under 2 inches of water. That'll keep him happy.
Okay.
Okay.
We'll mention really quickly about this guy Pruitt.
Yes.
He is the head of the agency,
Head of the EPA.
the Environmental Protection Agency.
Yep.
He filed 14 lawsuits against that agency
Yes.
when he was the Attorney
That's what
General of
qualified
Oklahoma.
him. That's what qualified him to
I
run
think
it.
so, yeah.
You know.
He knew it from the inside.
Now you see, Donald Trump has appointed a guy who is the energy and environment leader for the American Legislative Exchange Council.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, where does he get these people from? They're recommended. I would bet that they're recommended by the Koch brothers.
Well, I read something just yesterday that somebody has something really heavy on him.
On Trump? I wouldn't be
Something
surprised.
really, really heavy.
Yeah.
And they got him.
Yeah.
They got him. You will do what we tell you.
Yeah. Well, I've also read that he's got real support from 50 to 100 people in Congress.
Huh?
50 to 100 people.
That's not a lot.
The overwhelming majority of the Republicans in Congress really don't like him very much, and they're waiting for some excuse to jump ship.
I can believe that.
And when you know, I mean, this is an extremely volatile situation we've got going
Well,
on.
the
in
libertarian wing isn't too happy with him. The extreme right wing isn't too happy with him. The extreme left wing isn't too happy with him.
He picked the wrong time to be president. But honestly, I'm one of those people who thinks that he won't survive. And it's not that I think somebody will assassinate him. I think that either he will resign, or he will be impeached, or he will be removed from office by a group of people who go through the correct congressional, constitutional things that have to be done to certify that a president of the United States is capable of working. Mm-hmm. So
I think he's just going to quit because he'd be bored.
I think yes. If you include bored in the term bored, if you include the idea of being terrified, I think he's going to realize that he can't succeed at doing the things that he wants to do, and when that happens, he's not going to want to be.
What is it he wants to do? He changes his mind every day.
I'm not sure that he knows. Anyway,
Let's move to San Diego.
San Diego
wants 500 megawatts of pumped hydro.
And we have some pumped hydro there. This is from Energy Storage News, surprisingly enough. And there you see some energy stored, or a storage facility.
I don't think this one is built yet. This is a reservoir.
This is a reservoir.
Will be half of the pump storage.
The other half is down at the bottom of the mountain.
Or it's up at the top above this.
Oh, no, I think this is pretty close to the top.
It looks like
There's
it's
a
pretty
mountain in the distance there that you can see wind turbines on.
Wind turbines, yeah, I noticed that.
Okay, a 500 megawatt energy storage facility with 5 to 8 hours of storage duration could be built in San Diego, with local water authorities seeking detailed proposals for such a project to support the grid and help integrate renewable energy. The facility would support the electric grid's stability in a region struck consistently with drought. Now, this particular picture that we've got here is not in California. That's in the Canary Islands.
Oh, is that so? That's not what we're looking at.
No, no.
Okay.
This is in the Canary Islands. It's actually in use, and it's a
nice looking little lake there.
Nice, yeah, it's a nice looking
done.
little lake. And it's one of the things that makes this particular island energy self-sufficient, so they don't have to use fossil fuels at all anymore.
Well, they're right in the middle of the jet stream.
Oh, they're
they get wind all the time.
They get wind all the time. They get sunshine, a lot of sunshine.
What do they call them? The trade winds, they call them.
Yeah. So this is a for them, this is an obvious move, and so anyway, there it is, Energy Storage News. And now this next item.
This is an interesting article.
This is a good one.
It's an interview. And
yes.
The interview is worth following. The guy's good.
This is really interesting.
How a professional climate change denier discovered the lies and decided to fight for science.
Yeah, this is from a publication called UPROXX, UPROXX. It might seem like an impossible transition, but Jerry Taylor, who used to be staff director for Energy and Environment Task Force at the American Legislative Exchange Council and vice president of the Cato Institute, made it. Now, why wasn't this guy appointed by Donald Trump, you suppose? He had
He had the right
credentials. He just doesn't have the right viewpoint.
He's not quoting the right line.
He's not quoting the right lie, did you say?
Line. Oh, okay. Yeah. Good point. You're ahead of me this morning. Haven't had enough coffee yet.
Well, this guy is, he talks about how he found out that what he had been talking about on television, on radios, writing about professionally for years and years and years was just made up stuff. And it wasn't true, and he gradually got to the point where he just couldn't do it anymore.
He had his Damascus moment, right?
He had his Damascus moment, that's right.
Quick takeaway from here.
Yeah.
This is a quote from him. The hardest part of reversing the warming of the planet may be convincing climate change skeptics of the need to do so.
Yes.
A minority of the public remains stubbornly resistant to that fact.
Right, but that will happen.
It's going to have to happen.
It's going to have to happen. The question that we've got is how many people are going to die? How many species are going to go extinct? What's going to happen to our plant and animal populations in the meantime? Because we're losing another species about every 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. We're losing another person about every 10 seconds. And, because of outdoor air pollution. Indoor air pollution about the same number. But, if we address the outdoor air pollution, the solutions that we use will also address the indoor air pollution.
It will help anyhow.
It'll help, yeah.
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We do. It's a pair of walruses, and this is on...
Walrus.
It works on Sunday, April 30th, and this is from The Guardian.
This is very similar to the previous interview.
Yep.
Yes, I am a climate alarmist. Global warming is a crime against humanity.
Well,
it's a good read, by the way. This is a good article.
And I happen to believe this is correct, and I happen to believe that various people, some of whom I could name, should be shipped to Brussels and tried for crimes against humanity and possibly spend the rest of their lives in prison because they are killing people. Most of us have wondered about the human context of crimes against humanity. Why didn't more people intervene? How could so many pretend not to know? The principled condemnation of large-scale atrocity is too often a luxury of hindsight. I knew a very nice woman when I was about 7 years old.
I knew one once too.
Yeah, I knew a very nice woman who spoke with a funny accent.
Yeah.
And she had been, when she was a teenager, a member of the Hitler Youth.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And she really did consider turning in her parents because they didn't like Hitler. She didn't do it.
Wow.
And she...
Brainwashing is strong.
Oh, yeah. And she didn't do it. And she said that she went to a Hitler Youth meeting that was the day after, or a couple of days after, the invasion of Poland. And the Hitler Youth had lost their enthusiasm over that because they realized that something terrible was going on. But there were a lot of people who were fooled. A lot of people were fooled because they wanted to be fooled. They were fooled because they couldn't stand the idea that these things were happening, which is why Dwight Eisenhower, who was the 5-star general at this point, when they went into Germany, ordered the local populations to tour the camps and be filmed while they were doing it. So that
did he really? I'm not aware of that one.
He wanted
to show
documentary evidence that this had happened because he knew it would be denied.
Yeah.
Now
They're still denying it.
We've got people dying in this world today at a rate that is from pollution, that at a rate which is approximately equal to the rate at which soldiers and sailors and airmen died in the Second World War.
Yeah, you quoted those numbers.
And this is just crazy. You remember on Monday we went to the thing in Bennington.
Yeah, the wind turbine thing.
I got an email this morning from somebody who said, "I heard you say."
I sent it to you.
Yeah, you did. As a matter of fact, you forwarded it to me, and I replied to it. It was, "I heard you say."
Sarah Wolf.
Yeah, that's right, from VPIRG. I heard you say that when the terrorists attacked in Paris, in the 217 minutes, 137 people died, and almost exactly 10 times that number of people died during that same 217 minutes as a result of outdoor air pollution. Can you give me the source?
Yep.
Well, I couldn't find the source. The reason I couldn't find the source is because there's too many sources.
Too many sources.
And they all say basically the same thing.
Yeah.
So I said, here's a source that says it would be 1,240, and here's another source that says it would be 1,440. So, we're straddling that thing that I had said, which is 1,380. There's a lot of indication that this is happening, and there's a lot of people who want you to think it isn't.
Yeah, that's true.
And they are in denial. And they are in denial just like the people in those towns in Germany that had concentration camps were in denial.
Right. They believe what they wanted to
They
believe.
believe what they want to believe, and very often what they're paid to believe.
A quick takeaway from this article. As I said, this is a good read.
Yeah.
There can be no greater crime against humanity than the destruction of conditions that make human life possible. Duh. I am a climate alarmist because there is no morally responsible way to downplay the dangers that negligent policies expected to accelerate human-caused climate change pose to mankind.
And the thing that's infuriating about this is we've got all the technology we need to stop it.
Yep.
We've got everything that we need not only to stop it, but in the process, we get more comfortable.
Yep.
We have more money.
Yep.
We are safer. Our medical expenses go down, and the whole thing is we're better off.
It sounds like a win-win situation.
Except for one thing.
Yeah,
and that is there's a small group of people who are going to lose money in the process because they sell fossil fuels and they cannot wrap their brains around a business plan that can deal with a new paradigm as well as what they've been socking to people for years.
These people have been in the catbird seat for a long, long time.
They have been, and
they look at that catbird seat and it is evaporating.
Yeah, they want that thing to stay. Well, it's not going to stay, and what happens to them is going to be proportionate to the amount of time that they are still there fighting to keep it. Because if they gave up today and said, you know what, we got to stop killing people,
they can invest in something else.
They can invest in something else, and the world would be full of people who say, thank you very much for being honest. But if they keep waiting until somebody walks up to the door and says, you are under arrest, they're going to be shipped to Brussels and tried for crimes against humanity.
Well, that's what it's saying almost here in the next sentence.
Yeah.
The climate policies of the Trump administration, backed by many Republican leaders, are rooted in culpable ignorance and transparent corruption.
Culpable means purposeful.
Absolutely.
Intentional.
They place us all at a risk on a scale that previous crimes against humanity never have.
Yeah. Yeah.
We are the bystanders who must choose to intervene or be defined by our
and
failure.
When I said the people in the Second World War dying, that didn't include the people in the concentration camps. That didn't include innocent civilians who were simply killed. But even if you include all those people, the Second World War lasted from 1939 until 1945. At least in Europe it did. You could arguably say it started before 1939 in China. But it lasted only 6 years maybe. This thing has been going on for a century.
Absolutely.
And until they stop, it's going to continue going on.
Well, as I said, these are very powerful people.
We let people die because we're used to it.
Yeah.
Okay, we should get out of this mire.
And we're really not getting much of the real reports.
No.
A lot of the news is too sanitized.
Yeah.
Let's move along to Iowa.
Omaha World Herald. I used to live in...
What's that got to do with Iowa?
Iowa's
the biggest utility to produce all its energy from renewable sources.
Iowa's largest utility is in the midst of a $3.6 billion investment in wind power with a goal of producing 100% of its energy from renewable sources. Mid-American Energy, which, by the way, is a Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, I was going to say that's what's his name?
Yeah, what's his name on it? Plans to build 1,000 more turbines in the next couple of years on top of the more than 2,000 it already has around the state. This is according to the Des Moines Record. and reported here in the Omaha World Herald. So
The utility share of
Warren
its energy.
Buffett, by the way.
Yeah, Warren Buffett. That comes from renewable sources will jump from 55% to nearly 90%.
Yep, and this, of course, was announced just about the time Donald Trump's 100th day in office came to pass.
And these people in Mid-America have agreed to freeze their rates till 2029. I mean, your electric bill isn't going to change for what?
Wind power is going to
12
make
years?
things so expensive in 2029.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. Yeah,
There's not another utility in the country, gas, water, cable, electric, that held rates steady for 12 years.
Yep.
And the answer to all of this, the beauty of wind is there's no fuel costs.
Yes. Let's get back to Vermont. WCBI has got stuff for
Yeah, I
us.
had a bad link on this one. I could not get this article.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I got a parallel article, so I got the answers.
Oh,
but
okay.
I could not get this article.
Oh, okay. I test a lot of these, but sometimes
Well,
they
this
get
was
funny.
just a bad link. It
Oh,
just wouldn't
okay.
open up.
It wouldn't open?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I couldn't get around to finding that same
It
link.
happens sometimes.
Because everywhere I went, it was a bad link.
Yeah.
Latest on climate marches around the U.S. Saturday. We've already talked about some of this.
Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders says climate marches taking place around the country are part of a fight for the future of the planet. The former candidate for Democratic presidential nomination addressed an adoring crowd of about 3,000 people who turned out for a rally at the Vermont State House in Montpelier.
Bingo. I could tell you what he said, but
Okay.
he was just talking about climate woes,
Yeah.
He's been talking about these things all along.
Yep.
So that's what he was talking about.
Okay, we are up to Monday, May 1st.
Monday, May 1st.
And we
May
have an
already. Boy, this year's going
item
fast.
from Inside Climate News and a picture of the Block Island wind farm.
Yeah, there
and
we go. And that's all of the 5
tourists
turbines.
who are just scared to death, shaking in
Yeah,
their
it's
boots.
really killing tourism. Well, that picture has all of the turbines in that wind farm.
That's the entire wind farm.
Yeah.
Oh man.
America's first offshore wind energy makes landfall in Rhode Island. This is a very informative article.
Yep.
This is a good article.
For decades, the Block Island Power Company ferried up to 1 million gallons of diesel fuel a year from the Rhode Island mainland to power Block Island. The fuel is costly and dirty energy whose source whose CO2 emissions are second only to burning coal. Now, America's first offshore wind farm is delivering electricity. And it's so typical of anti-wind people. They come and they say, these people are paying 40 cents a kilowatt hour because they're dependent on wind. Well, they are.
Yeah, but they used to be paying 80 cents a kilowatt.
You got it, Tom. Yeah, they used to be paying a lot more, almost double, because they were dependent on diesel oil. So, yeah. The reason they're paying so much is because they had to amortize the cost of the submarine cables that connect those wind turbines both to Block Island and to the mainland.
Well, Block Island's in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not close to the shore.
No, it's not. and they had never been able to put in a cable from the mainland to Block Island before because it was so expensive.
Well,
they
didn't have the technology.
Yeah, but now they've got those turbines, they've got a reason to do it, which is that they can sell the electricity on the mainland, and of course they can sell it on Block Island too. So
we didn't show this picture, and unfortunately I can't bring it up, but there was a really nice map here showing the development of the Atlantic coast for wind energy.
Yeah.
And pretty much all of these things, the contracts have been let already.
Yeah.
They're not built yet, but
they're going.
But we got Cape Wind that we've talked about. That's up by Cape Cod.
Cape Wind is out. The Cape Wind project is basically not going to be developed by Cape Wind.
This one I'm talking about, this is done, isn't it?
Which?
This is the one off New Bedford? It's off Cape Cod?
Cape Wind is off Cape Cod. Cape Wind is the company developing it, and they won't be developing it, I have been told.
Okay. Well,
but all that means is that somebody else is going to be developing the same piece of property.
Well, all of these, according to this picture, the contracts have been awarded.
Yes.
They're not all built. None of them are. Very few are built.
Block Island is the only one that's been built so far.
Well, next to Cape Wind, and in the middle of the ocean there's a big one. That's a consortium of Dong Energy, who we've talked about, Copenhagen Infrastructure, and Deepwater Wind.
Yep.
And they got a set up there that's almost as big as the state of Rhode Island.
Yeah.
The next one is Deepwater Wind again.
Yep.
And this is right off the coast of Brooklyn.
Yep.
And then there's Statoil.
Yeah.
Well, Statoil is,
They just go on and on.
The Deepwater Wind is the Block Island one that we talked about.
Yep.
Statoil, which is a Norwegian company,
Yes.
that's off of Brooklyn.
Yep.
We get down off the Jersey Shore, and there's a consortium of Toto, who I never heard of, except he's a dog, isn't he?
I don't know.
And Dong Energy.
Yeah.
Then we move a little bit further south and Deepwater Wind again, and then
Yep.
Toto. And then we get down to Virginia, and the state of Virginia, in cooperation with Virginia Electric Power Company, is building one. And then just at the North Carolina borderline is Avangrid Renewables. And then down by Myrtle Beach, these aren't leased yet, but there's a big group down there, and again about as big as the state of Rhode Island.
Yep. Tom, we got to move on here because we're running behind, I'm afraid. So, is that all you need on that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our next item is from The Guardian, and I don't think we need to comment on this. Do you have a title?
Congress agrees a $1 trillion to a $1 trillion budget deal, but no money for the border wall.
Yeah. Negotiators have reached a bipartisan agreement on a spending package to keep the U.S. federal government funded until the end of September, according to congressional aides. It was a very different a budget from what the president proposed. The EPA's budget is at 99% of current levels and also includes increased infrastructure spending. So if we can just go on from there.
Next one, we got a picture.
This is Vermont coming up, and this is from the Greenfield Recorder.
Power line proposal could open remote Vermont land debate.
A proposal to build an electric transmission line to carry Canadian power through Vermont on its way to southern New England would reopen public debate about the use of land that began nearly 2 decades ago. The proposal by National Grid would install the power alongside an existing transmission line, and it happens that this transmission line would simply be widened.
They would double the width of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would.
This is something that I keep thinking about. In order to power Vermont, we'd need something like 200 and some odd miles of ridgetop to be developed if we were going to go entirely with wind, which we will not do.
Yeah.
But in order to avoid putting those wind turbines in and solar farms in and things like that, we would have to bring in the power from outside. And that would probably require much, much more than 200 miles of transmission lines. And they
yeah, but that's in the process already. They're going under Lake Champlain with it.
They're doing a lot of stuff, but
Yeah. This isn't even about Vermont.
Yeah.
This is about bringing power down to Connecticut.
But it's going through Vermont.
Going through Vermont.
Yeah. Okay, should we move on?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, we've got an item. This is Tuesday, May 2nd, from the Union of Concerned Scientists.
New Mexico's largest electricity provider proposes going 100% coal-free.
The Public Service Company of New Mexico has issued a landmark finding. After a routine assessment of future power supply scenarios, the utility made an anything but routine conclusion. The best version of its future self is coal-free.
And this utility has been using coal for a bulk of its power for the last, 50 years?
Yeah, and they're going to wind and solar for a lot of what they're going to be getting.
Absolutely.
So, move on, or do you have something there?
No, it's just I'm reading about they're closing their generating stations by 2031. Everything's going to be closed.
Yes.
And they're adding more renewables. And they're using gas.
There's a young woman in New Mexico who's a coal union organizer who I email with
I
regularly.
think I've heard her name on the news recently.
C.C. Riley. Her name is.
Yeah, I have heard her name.
And
recently.
she's finishing up her master's degree. She's going to be getting a doctorate in law. And she writes me regularly. And she talks about the problems that they have because the coal miners are going to be out of work. And she knows the coal miners are going to be out of work. And she's been telling them, you've got to be prepared. And they're not willing to listen. And meanwhile, the utilities are saying, oh, we're not going to do this anymore. So I don't know what to say.
It's a tough one. They're up against a rock and a hard place.
They're up against the rock and the hard place. That's right. Okay.
Well, we got an image here coming up.
Okay. Offshore wind. This is from Pixabay, which is one of those picture agencies. And
I don't know where that is. I guess it's Denmark, huh?
It might be the London Array or something like that.
Like
It's hard to tell, but this is from Renews, and they use pictures for everything.
Well, Massachusetts issues a draft request for proposal for offshore projects.
Yeah.
This is significant because it's a big one.
It is big. Massachusetts has taken the wraps off plans to solicit up to 800 megawatts in its first call for offshore wind. The draft request for proposal seeks 400 megawatts, but up to 800 megawatts will be considered if the evaluation team determines that a larger scale proposal is superior to other bids or is likely to produce significantly more economic benefits. Now, 800 megawatts is big.
Significant.
And when you consider that the capacity factors of these offshore wind farms are high compared to onshore, these are wind farms that have capacity factors that are in the neighborhood of 50%.
Yeah, the wind blows a lot out there.
The wind blows a lot, and nuclear would have a capacity factor of 90% perhaps, which means that an 800 megawatt array would be delivering a little bit less or comparable amount of power to what Vermont Yankee originally did.
That's true. Right about the money.
Yeah. So there it is.
It's interesting here because the proposal has been put together by a bunch of utilities and the state.
Yes.
An interesting public-private partnership here.
Yes. Yeah, they're doing a lot of public-private stuff in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Our next item is from Renew Economy, which is a Australian operation.
I got clean technical.
You do? For?
Well, are we talking about Renews? Massachusetts issues?
That was what we just did.
The next one I've got coming up is...
should be Renew Economy.
I've got clean technical.
Are you talking about Moab?
Yes.
Okay. Well, why don't I really quickly read this thing from Renew Economy, and we can just skip it and go on. Australia's next largest integrated energy company, AGL Energy, says Australia's transmission away from a grid dominated by coal to low carbon generation will bypass baseload gas power. The prediction is based on the now fairly well accepted economic view that gas power is becoming less competitive with large-scale solar and wind. So we are up to May 3rd.
Yeah,
Wednesday, May 3rd. And this is the thing from Clean Technica about Moab, and that is an actual photograph.
Yeah.
My goodness, although I'll tell you, looking at the bottom of that photograph, I think there was a big mirror put up to highlight the bottom of that tree.
That is a pretty, and the whole area around Moab.
Yeah, every time I see these pictures, I say, "Oh man, that is so beautiful." I'm so glad.
We've got all these crazy rock formations down there.
I'm so glad I'm not there. I like the green of New England and cloudy skies.
It is definitely a different.
And rain and gentle sunshine. Okay.
Well, how the small community of Moab, Utah is making a big difference.
The city of Moab, Utah, with a population of 5,325 and a per capita income of $23,586, has committed to 100% renewable electricity by 2032. You can find out how Moab made the dream of going renewable into reality and how your community, Brattleboro, can do the same.
Well, it is a step-by-step.
It is a step-by-step.
And for what it's worth, Moab's about half the size of Brattleboro.
Yeah, a little less, actually.
A little bit less.
Yep.
The
and
problem,
it's not wealthy.
Climate change. The solution? Choosing 100% renewable energy.
Yeah. There
And they tell you how to do it.
They tell you how to do it.
And they're on their way to making it happen. The article is good. The article you should read.
This is a good article if you want to change the world. This is a respectable place to start working. Okay.
This is our last item.
Our last item comes from the MalaysianDigest.com.
That's what I say. Where do you get these guys?
I do web searches.
Yeah,
Whatever
you do,
comes
huh?
up, you know.
These come
And
up.
this is the MalaysianDigest.com
probably in half a
writing about
dozen-
Germany.
There's probably a half a dozen other publications as well. It's a good article.
Yeah.
Renewable energy use surges in Germany over the weekend.
Okay, and industry reports said energy from renewable sources provided the majority of power over the weekend in Germany. For the first time, most of the country's coal-fired power plants were offline. Renewable energy sources provided the majority of the power over the weekend, producing 85% of the electricity on Sunday. Now, this is impressive. Germany is a large economy.
Yes, it is.
And 85% of the electricity was coming from renewable sources.
Well, Germany is not the only European nation trying to wean itself from non-renewables.
Yeah.
UK went entirely without coal-fired energy on April 21st, and I think we talked about that.
Yes, we did. And
It was the first time the country had done so since the start of the Industrial Revolution.
Yep. And Denmark produces about 140% of the power that it needs from renewable power.
So they're exporting it.
They're exporting power like mad. Two German states, Schleswig-Holstein and Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, both produce, in one case 130%, in the other case 100%, as of the last figures I saw that were about a year ago, of their power comes from renewables. They were both exporting power. Mecklenburg-Vorpommern had a couple of coal-burning plants online, but that was because they were under contract to provide power to other states. And of course, you've got places like Portugal, which has gone multiple days with no consumption of fossil fuels at all.
Portugal?
Portugal.
Well, they have a lot of hydro, don't they?
They have a lot of hydro. Albania.
What? Where are they?
Albania has gone for years without any fossil fuel consumption at all.
They must have a lot of hydro.
They're in almost 100% dependent on hydro.
Yeah.
Norway.
A lot of this hydro's been around a long time.
Yep, Norway is another. You can count Iceland as being a European country if you feel like it.
It's considered European.
And,
and they got geothermal.
They have They have tremendous geothermal, but they have a lot of hydro. And the way they do things, I wouldn't be surprised if they put up solar power.
It almost sounds weird, but
during the summer it makes sense.
Well, no matter where you are on the Earth, you get the same amount of sunlight.
Well, yeah. Although near the poles, it comes through the atmosphere at a steep angle.
At a low angle.
So it reduces the quality of the light from what it would be in a desert on the equator. But on the equator, you get 12 hours a day, pretty much, day in, day out, above the clouds if there are clouds. But you get 12 hours a day. At the poles, you get solar for 6 months and then none for 6 months.
Yeah, midnight darkness.
But it's still 6 in one and half a dozen in the other, as they say. Okay, that is the end of our show.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And I want you all to have a perfectly lovely week. So we'll see you next time.
And think renewables.
And think renewables. That's right. Bye-bye.
We spin and we toil, we work all day, sowing and reaping, we store goods away, so we can be dressed well on the day that we die. We dig and drill and waste what we find, break up the earth, leaving little behind, but we will grow lilies in the by and by. I want to point out that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. I want to hope gentle rains can fall upon the land can stay lovely still.